Welcome everyone to the AMA workshop on closing more higher value deals. I'll be covering the V4 agency sales framework that I built for my agency and showing you how you can unpack that depending on whatever service that you offer. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Clifford Almeida. I am the founder of My Web Audit. I also run an agency in Orlando. Whatever I'm teaching here, it really doesn't matter whether you work with small mom and pop businesses or you work with large seven, eight, or even nine-figure companies. The fundamentals will work the same. All right. I started selling my first websites around 2000 for $400, and I've been blessed to have now closed many multi six-figure websites and have retainers in that place as well. Today, I'll be covering that V4 agency sales framework. And if you are anything like me when you started out your agency, or maybe you're still in this place with a few of these things, then the answer to this is going to be implementing this sales framework, right? So I'm not sure if any of you can relate. When I started out, I struggled getting leads, right, that could actually afford my services. I struggled being able to show value quickly before they paid me, in essence, so that they closed from a prospect to a customer. I struggled with explaining why I ultimately am more expensive or charge more than others. And also that I had to deal with tire kickers, right? Looking for that $500 website. I think this changed. This started out like 2015, 16. It wasn't an issue. Then when we had COVID, it came up. And it definitely is a problem now when you think about the Wix and the other AI builders out there where people are now leveraging AI. So I think if you happen to be in the space, my recommendation, pivot from it because that's the race to the bottom. And then obviously whether it's an AI tool or a builder out there or someone from overseas can build it for X. I wanted to separate myself from that, something I struggled with, as well as the fact that I moved from the feast to famine cycle where we'd get a deal, it worked out really well, and another, and then we'd be booked out for 45 to 60 days. And then I'd close the deal and then finish the work, and then I'd need to find a new customer again. And so we solved all of this by following this framework so that we could get higher value deals and then upsell and cross sell other services along the way. So for any of you that can relate to this, I just want to let you know if you take what I share with you here today and you practice it and implement it and iterate upon it in the next 3 to 6 months, you are going to see a tremendous difference. Okay. So sales don't just happen, you need to create them. And I believe that the fastest way to close a sale is to effectively show your authority, build some trust, and demonstrate your expertise while delivering value. If you can't do that, chances are you lose the sale, or they move to the competition, or they treat you as a commodity and they don't understand the value you bring. Okay. So what is the V4 agency sales framework? I have a full blog on it. You can go to my web audit and you can read it. It's 5,000 words where I cover the entire process. What you're getting here is the Cliff Notes version of the actionable items that you need to, in essence, take away, and then the deep dive, go to the blog. Okay, so the first V is for visibility. Ultimately, when someone reaches out to you, whether it's a website or they need SEO, they're going to say something like, I need a beautiful website or a better website, or I need SEO. But the truth is, all they're doing is telling you what they want in regards to your service, but they're not presenting to you the actual problem. Generally, you need to ask why a couple of times, usually 3 to 5 times, for them to really say something like, hey, I need a new website because X, because we let go of 30% of our workforce, and that ultimately led to us having a loss of $300,000 in revenue in 2025. And now we need a new website. And our hope is that with the website and the traffic and the leads, we're able to close that gap. So now the visibility problem is ultimately them saying that they need to generate another $300,000 because they didn't hit their revenue projections for 2025. So the value is ultimately now showing them where your service, where they are to where they're trying to be, and how your services can deliver that. Okay. The vision of a better tomorrow is you future pacing them to say, okay, look, okay, by the end of 2026, with this new website and whatever else we do, we're able to bridge that gap so you can add $300,000 or more to your business. And then the last V that is for validation. Not everyone is ready to buy or invest in your services. The idea is to be able to come in as a trusted partner, make sure they feel heard, and then tell them exactly how you can help them. And if that's not an investment in your core service offering. The idea is to get your foot in the door. Okay, so we'll do a deep dive into all of that. Before we go into all of that, I wanted to let you know that none of this is going to be effective if you haven't picked the right market. Okay. Most agencies out here fail because they do not pick the right market. Like you literally can't out hustle a bad market. And with AI, it's now becoming exponentially harder. Okay. So if you haven't selected a market or you've picked a market and you miss at least three of these items, you definitely should not be working in that market moving forward. So last month, I spoke to someone, they jumped on the call. I'll use them just as a point of reference. They jumped on and they were talking about how they're looking to be more profitable and they're just not able to charge what they wanted. And this literally was the solution to their problem. And so you have to ask yourself, like, are the people I'm looking to work with, do they experience a pain point that is expensive where it's costing them money or leads, or potentially they're about to close down, right? But they have some sort of revenue or purchasing power to invest in your services. So first, ultimately, do they have an expensive pain point? Two, are they able to pay a premium for your services without going bankrupt? All right. So an example of high purchasing power companies are medical, legal, dental, home services. Someone who ultimately closes a kitchen remodel or full service remodel or bathroom remodel, right? Those are going to be 5, 10, 15, $20,000 for that customer that they're getting. So it's easy for them to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars with your service when they have purchasing power. And ideally, you want them to be easy to target, right? How do you find them? Whether it's targeting an industry association through a conference, jumping into Facebook, finding them through a local Google map pack where you can pick up the phone and call them, stop by their location, whatever it is, running an ad to get in front of the ideal decision maker. It's really important for you to be able to do that. And then ultimately, you want to pick a growing industry, right? Industry like healthcare, home services, AI adjacent industries, they're heavily growing, but you definitely do not want to work with, for example, a copywriter or maybe a magazine company, just because those industries are shrinking, they're not expanding. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions specifically at the end, let me know. But the reality is, if you haven't checked three or more of these boxes, chances are you need to repivot who you work with moving forward. So I'm going to show you that this framework works really well for sales, but it also works well for dead leads and for leads that have maybe ghosted you over time, or those that say things like, I don't have the money to invest in your services. If you know that you're solving a problem for them, they have the purchasing power, and they're in a growing market, this strategy of effectively figuring out how getting visibility and then delivering value can work really well, not just in your sales process, but effectively in your lead gen and your marketing. So let me walk you through, in essence, I think what was probably the hardest time for agencies and businesses in the last decade, which was COVID. All right. So I'm gonna give you the Cliff Notes version of this because you can screenshot it and read it and see how I executed on it. But this is an example of someone who reached out and said they only just had a couple of $1,000 and that they wanted a website, and I was able to reposition this and effectively close them into a 10K website and a 2,500 a month retainer. Okay. So it started out with me reaching out to them through COVID and because it was a dead lead, reaching out to them and saying, hey, this is what's going on. And they reached out and said, hey, do you have anything to make websites obviously searchable for voice? And so then my response was like, hey, look, yes, we do. And it's going to cost. And then the response is SEO, right? And they're like, hey, ultimately, we're a small business. These are all the, like a no is not a no. These are all the things, like they said, we were burnt. We don't have money. We'll never do. I hope I never have to do it again. All of this. And so then my response was like, hey, I understand. I ran a report. Ultimately, here's the report showing you what's going on. Here's a video that covers what I'm doing, asking them some questions specifically about their business. And the guy responds back. And then I also sent him another message saying, look, not only is your SEO off, but your website is actually off, right? And so to fix it, again, take a look. Like, here's a 40-page audit that came out of my web audit. But really, you don't need all of that. Here's a video that shows you the key things, right? And this is me communicating through COVID via an email and just a video. And so he literally responds back saying, "Hey, would you train a few of our salespeople?" And why? All I did was lead with value and show them how I can close the gap to get them from where they are to where they want to go. And boom, that's it. The guy closes the deal. It's super simple. And I just want to say, no matter what you promise, like at the end of the day, if you want to grow your business, you have to be able to deliver on your promise. So he was like, "Hey, we're good to go." We were able to deliver results real quick. So that was one person. Another one here was a $2,400 audit and optimization that then led to a $979 retainer. Here again, just really simple, me reaching out and saying, "Hey, I took a look at your elements and from your GBP, etc. Here's some opportunities." The person replied back and said, "Okay, that's really neat, but could you give us a quick, like a discount and do it affordably?" And I was like, "No, this is our process." And literally in 3 minutes, they approve back saying, "Hey, we're good to go." For those of you that are maybe overcomplicating things where you need like a long statement of scope of work, you need proposals, all of that, you really don't. Like, here's just a line item. This is it. Simple invoice paid up front before we take action. And that's it, right? And then the idea is once you can deliver something, you get your foot in the door, you try do it, then you can try to sell them, right? It's the customer ascension model. You want to keep moving them into your core service offering. And it's literally as simple as this. Here's what we did. Here's the other things we can do. And here's what the investment looks like. Okay. And so I just want to let you know that as I'm the founder of my web audit, and so I use audits in our agency. And so whether it's a productized offer, a foot in the door, like I showed you, the ability to upsell and cross-sell different services once they do something, or even the ability to do a quarterly annual assessment and then put together a larger game plan, this is what we do. And when you see things like a 3 minute response back or someone signing this and paying up front, it's because the model has been effectively put in place where I have figured out what the gap is, the value gap. I've identified from where they are to where they want to be, and I'm showing them exactly how my services can solve that problem and really what the outcome looks like when it's solved. Okay. So just a heads up, like this morning, I jumped into our invoicing tool, which is Zoho, and I just did a simple search for audit. And then as you can see here, like this is blurred out for privacy purposes, but you can see like this is the revenue directly generated from audits, productized, and then include into fulfillment work, right? And so this actually works. All right. This is not like theoretical. This is actually what's working today. And my hope is over the next 3 months, I'm able to specifically create training and resources to help you execute in a similar way. So now let's move into really what my sales calls look like and how I execute on that. Okay. So to give you context, I generally only speak to 20 to 25% of the people who come into my pipeline. Why? Because they pay me. Maybe they say things like, "We just need a website. We're looking for something cheap," right? There's a whole bunch of reasons, but bottom line is I need to know that they have an expensive problem. I need to know that they want to take action now, and I want to know that they can invest in my business. And so I'm asking them a list of questions, whether they pick up the phone and call me or whether they fill out something on our website and we lead them to an intake form. These are some of the questions. And by the way, if you go to the blog, I have a whole list of questions there. In my opinion, failure to plan is planning to fail. And so here's what I do for our sales prep and agenda. Usually, I'm looking at the intake form, seeing what questions they ask. I'm then, depending on what it is, I'm running a combination of three, usually three audits: a website audit, SEO audit, GBP audit. If they're obviously a local business and they care about, or they say they need more visibility, more leads, then SEO GBP is done along with the website audit. I am also sending them something like this. All right, so this is what I call a playbook. Ultimately, it's just a well-designed PDF that says I've worked with Fortune 500 companies. Some of them are small businesses. And so these are local small businesses. This is national. This is Fortune 500. This is federal government. I just share that to say these are results. These are people I've worked with. So I'm building trust. Awards, right? Focused on track records, repeatable results, following a process that works. Like this is what I share with them with my email. And if they haven't checked it out, I skim that for the first minute or two because my goal is to tell them in the agenda Hope you're doing well. The next 2 minutes is for me to tell you a couple of things that maybe you didn't see, and the rest of the 25 minutes is about giving you the highest value of time you'll have this week working on your business. And then we run through stuff, ask them some questions, present the value by showing some of the insights from the audits, address objections, present the next steps, which is discovery. So now let's walk through what the V4 framework actually looks like. So first one is visibility. You really can't help your lead unless you can help them identify the gap from where they are to where they want to be. So an example of what I mentioned earlier was someone says, hey, they want a website. You ask them why. They say the website's not performing well. I need a better design site. Why, till they get to something that's quantifiable. And in this case, let's just say, hey, our goal is to hit the $300,000 we missed last year. Now I know this is where they are. They've literally told me where they want to be. And so now if they try to say, I have $3,000, like where in the world can you invest $3,000 and get 100x ROI? Like that's not possible, right? And maybe my math is off, but I believe that's what it is. And the bottom line is you want them to clearly tell you where they are, asking the right questions where they want to be. And that leads you to the next step. First, you identify this gap. Your services are ultimately going to solve that gap, right? So when people jump on these strategy calls, most people are selling them like, hey, we do great websites, we do SEO, here's XYZ. But the reality is, you actually want to deliver value that separates you from the next sales call they may be jumping on. So, what we do is we ensure that because they gave us the 25 minutes, we want it to be a wow. Here's what really is the problem. Here's how we solve it. So, their needs and wants, for example, I translate the nice site or SEO and I move that into the top three issues, which is more traffic, more leads, slow site. Then I show them some of the issues of show versus tell. So I built this platform in 2017, and the sales strategy has really been that way all the way till probably mid last year. So what I changed last year is I moved into enforcing less about the show and the tell and heavily focusing on outcomes. So, what does it look like when they get found? What does it look like when they get chosen as the trusted expert in that space? What does it look like to get paid more money? Okay, so translating all of this into this. And so, an example would be, let's just say I was talking to the gentleman and his name is John, and he is talking about the $300,000 growth. I'm taking this information, I'm putting it into the ROI calculator, which we have in my web audit. I put in some numbers. Generally, if they don't have the numbers, I am still, let me just close this down. I am still projecting some numbers. And the idea is, hey, look, if we just can keep your website the way it is and increase it by 1%, that's $15,000. But if we can actually combine that with a 30% increase in revenue, in traffic, that actually would lead to 42,000. And then you can see the compounding impact over an annual time frame, right? So I'm using these numbers to future pace them. So for those of you that say, hey, Cliff, guess what? I do not do SEO, or I only do web design and I only do SEO, right? Maybe you just need to reposition, not maybe, you 100% need to reposition how your services lead to outcomes, right? So prospects don't buy web design or SEO. Really what they're buying is being found, being trusted, and ultimately generating more leads and revenue. Even when you talk about nonprofits, right, whether you're working with a church or you're working with a nonprofit organization, they're still looking to ensure that they get found by the people looking for them. They get trusted as someone who maybe wants to volunteer or attend a church or donate or contribute towards the cause. And so there is still a tangible outcome that you could deliver with your services. So it's really important, like at the end of the day here, whether it's web design, page speed, SEO, CRO, or business, Google business profiles, like at the end of the day, it starts with the professional design, but that actually leads to instant credibility. Visitors stay engaged, and that leads to more sales. And so if you're not speaking in terminology like this, you are literally going to end up being compared to all the problems shoot right up here. If you don't speak in terms of outcomes and results and solving expensive pain points between AI and those that are dealing with commodity services, you are going to you're going to lose out. Okay. So tremendously important for you to evaluate how your website messaging is, what your emails look like, how you speak on the sales calls, and take it from there. So the next part of the V4 framework is just vision. People are super busy, they have all kinds of problems, and there's so much to do. Like your goal is to say, hey, look, if you can invest in our services, we can get you to this place. Now, that may not mean taking them from, let's just say, 0 to 300,000. They might have to be milestones or different phases that get them there. Sometimes they say things like, well, hey, Cliff, what does it look like to get us there? And I say, what sort of budget do you have to invest? And they say something like, we have 3 to 5,000. Look, that's not going to help. Ultimately, if you have 3 to 5,000, then our goal is to say, what does it look like to find some low effort, high impact results, or high effort, high impact results based off of our audits, solve them so that over the next 30 to 60 days, you can get some quick wins. And from there, the idea would be you start getting some more calls and some more leads, and then you close more revenue, and then you can continue to invest. Or sometimes that really means saying, hey, look, you have a really bad website. I really wouldn't even invest 3 or 4 thousand. It might mean coming onto a care plan with us. It might mean doing some strategy work and investing XYZ. In this case, maybe 12 to 15,000 or 15 to 20,000 on a complete redesign and strategy over the next 90 days. We can begin the discovery, the planning, the strategy, and put all of that together. But the idea here is to give them a vision of a better future, a vision of what they want. And then that might mean getting them from 1 to 10 because they're willing to invest, or just finding little milestones and taking them along the way with that. Okay. The last V is for validation. Again, I have all of these notes, so I won't spend too much time here, but the idea is there is something called the CARE framework where you clarify, acknowledge, respond, and then explore. So clarify the problem, you acknowledge the objection, you respond with the feel, felt, found. I definitely understand how you feel. Jenny, who we worked with, felt the exact same way. What Jenny found out was then when she invested that 12 to $15,000, she literally got a return on investment back in 3 months. If you'd like me to connect you with Jenny, please let me know. Is that okay? Then you explore. Ultimately, did I address that objection? Does that clear that up? If they say yes, great, move to the next one. If not, you continue to just cycle through this process. And I have a checklist here. Again, the recording will be there. No need to screenshot anything. But the idea is each one of these steps have different things for you to do. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And ultimately, it's the easiest and fastest way to get people to say yes. So, an example I'll be walking through here, once we walk through this, is a retainer that we just recently closed. So once they're done and they're like, hey, Cliff, this is really good. We like the insights. How do we scope out XYZ? If it's a simple site, then I say, hey, look, this is what I think it is. We'll put together something. And if it's more complicated, then generally they're investing something like $2,000, $1,500 to $2,000 for us to do research and build out something. The way I position it is that, again, failing to plan is planning to fail, and we don't want them to have expectation gaps, and we don't want them to have scope creep and any of those things. Again, I have a great blog, 5,000 words plus, on paid discovery and why you should really be charging for that time and how it repositions you as a trusted expert, also on my web audit. Okay. And then also let them know this is just literally an investment. If you decide to move forward with this, we take this and we apply it as a credit, because one way or the other, planning needs to be done, and it needs to be done up front. Okay. So that is really what that looks like. I also want to let you know that the same model works extremely well with lead generation. All right. Just an example post here is something that you could do in a LinkedIn or Facebook group if you build some rapport, is to say, hey, look, I'd like to give back to this group. Free website review, drop your homepage. I'll do a Loom video and give you 6 actionable things you could do this week to get better results. This could be for GBP, on-page SEO, like easy stuff, right? You throw this into our platform as a lead magnet or an audit, and you'll get a whole bunch of stuff. So this works really well. I am going to quickly pivot over. And by the way, here's an example of Peter, and we have others on our website. You can take a look at our case studies and success stories. And then Brandy did something really unique. Brandy actually grew her list by 53% by ultimately partnering with a couple of different people and offering the audit in that, right? They combined and partnered up with shoulder partners, people that serve the same audience but in different services, and they were able to do that. If you go to our website, you take a look at John Falk. He's now at 100x easy in ROI, but he uses a similar model that I shared. and our audits to be able to do that. And now, when you are able to do this, and this blew my mind because I didn't think this to be possible, but I followed this exact same strategy with this growth plan that I put together for a client, where I had an executive summary, told them we understand their wins, and then repositioned the objections that they had expressed to us about the competition and the importance of why to invest now. Advertising costs have continued to rise, so waiting 3 months or 6 months is actually going to be more expensive. And the fact that they had struggled with doing things in-house, where they needed to invest in our services for us to do this as a full service agency, talking about the fact that customer decision making is becoming more complicated than ever, whether it is AI or whether it is social media platforms or print media. There's just television, there's so many places that are confusing people. And we need to make sure that they are positioned as the trusted expert, fast and quick, so that people can make the deal. And so, literally, I put this together, sent it to them ahead of the call, telling them to review it. And it was literally between 5 to 10 minutes when they were like, "You're good to go." And that was my 10K a month retainer. Now, this doesn't happen to everybody and for everybody, and doesn't literally happen to me all the time either. But my point is that if you're able to effectively frame the messaging, understand the problem, learn about the industry, this becomes more of the norm than the exception. Okay. So, for those of you that don't use my web audit, I believe this is the fastest way to do it over the next 3 months. We're heavily moving from just gathering insights to leveraging and combining our insights with AI to be able to help you fulfill these services. So instead of just having the insights to close the deal, we're taking these insights and then showing you how you can effectively build the ICPs, identify the social media posts, how to do the on-page SEO, prepare yourself for AI visibility, optimization, and all of that. Okay. So if you started this call and you were a little concerned about like where things are going in in the agency space, and you're concerned about AI, my hope is that you understand that the future is bright. But if you happen to to offer services and you're focused on the lower end of the market, or you happen to be positioning yourself as, I offer this service, not this outcome, then I want to let you know that I think the days are numbered, literally the months, maybe the next year, and that will be a wrap for people in that space. Can you still run a business and as a freelancer make a decent amount of money? Sure. But if you really are looking to build something where you have the freedom to do the things you want, manage your health, have time for your family, and do all the other things that matter to you, then it's going to be tremendously important for you to reposition if you already haven't. And for those of you that aren't in our Facebook group and you'd like to join the conversation, please go to facebook.com/groups or myweboudit/Facebook, and you'll get there. If you want a copy of this recording, just subscribe to My Web Audit and you'll get notified when that goes up in a couple of days. And I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much.